NFL to be exact.
Yeah, he has deteriorated, though. So now Marquette King, I guess, is your best player. But I never expected so many busts for the Oakland Raiders. I mean, you could attribute some of the busts to just having poor talent. I mean, Darren McFadden. There are injury-prone guys that play extremely well on the football field. I mean, not many people know that LaShawn McCoy was an injury problem. DeMarco Murray is such a solid player, but gets hurt a lot, but still is a solid contributor to the team because he isn't dependent on to carry the load. Darren McFadden, without him, there is no offense. I mean, I seriously, I mean, coming from just a football fan, getting rid of Michael Bush, getting rid of your all-star weapons on the offensive side. They got rid of Richard Seymour after such a good campaign with that team. I mean, I just question so many of the decisions, yet they figure out a way to re-sign Sebastian Janikowski. I just don't agree with the front office moves there in Oakland.
And I think they can just get a better field goal kicker and, keep Richard Seymour. I think Seymour, I remember watching Seymour. He was such a great player. I loved watching him with the Raiders. The Raiders were, they still have 10 losing seasons, but I mean, they've had some star players that have just left that team and make them look pretty damn awful. And Steven, let's go to our final thoughts here on the Raiders. What do you think they have to do to improve for next season?
It's kind of hard right now because,
that's a hard question.
Yeah, it is a hard question. There's so many things they need to work on. They need a better offensive line. That's one of the smaller, under the radar problem that they have. They have a better offensive line, but that's definitely not what they're going to be looking at come draft day. Secondly, they got to draft a quarterback. Look at Houston has Blake Bortles, obviously, like I said, Johnny Manziel from Texas A&M. If he's still on the draft board, Teddy Bridgewater, just some quarterback, please, for God's sake, just get a quarterback, a good one. And then on the defensive side, they got to get some veterans. Like Charles Woodson, he's a veteran, but you need to get younger veterans that know how to play the game and want to play in Oakland and play some good football. This team is a rebuilding team. It's been like this for a long time, and so it is a pros and cons of being a rebuilding team, but I feel like if you get some more veterans in, take more risk on the free agency market rather than take risk in the draft, and I feel like the Raiders can do something. But for next season, I see them at best 6 and 10 or 7 and 9. I can't see them going at 500 or above.
Obviously, the reason why, no matter who you got there, it's still a rebuilding season for a number of years for Oakland is the quarterback position. I believe that's the number one need we're talking far and away, number one to number two. Terrell Pryor's not your future. He's a backup QB at best. Is what the Broncos were facing with Tim Tebow, who was solid, gave you excitement, able to run with the football, but quarterback is the main concern. You got to get a wide out to help with your with your franchise QB back there, and then probably I would say the next biggest need outside of quarterback and receiver, you got to help. You got to help stop the opposition from drugging this team down the field. We saw Peyton Manning put up 31 points and a half and 4 passing touchdowns. The corners that used to be the strength of this football team, the defensive secondary, has now become a huge weakness with some huge whiffs drafting the last couple years. Lastly being DJ Hayden, who hasn't paid off at all. 0 dividends there for Oakland. Got to help stop the opposition with getting some corners, get a wide receiver, and a franchise QB with your number 7 pick. But the Raiders, those are the top 3, but I can make a whole list. Basically, replace the whole football team with better needs and better talent.
Man, this question is, I agree with Nick, this is hard, but if I had to say go with the new QB, Rashad Jennings is fine. I mean, I would keep him, I guess, for a couple more years because that's not your biggest concern. Wide receiver, of course, is a big concern. I look at the defense, and you really got to work on the corners, as Nick Rice said, but you keep Charles Woodson. If you keep Woodson around, he'll be fine. I think that if he just gets better corners, because I remember saying in interviews saying how awful his defense was and how they didn't play their standards at all. But, I look at their D-line needs to do a lot better too, but I think they got into I don't think they got into the QB enough times. But, let's move on. Let's go to the next football team, a team that was, yes.
I actually have one more thing to say. It just popped into my mind. When you said about wide receivers as a big concern, one guy that I look at and like, this guy he has so much potential. Excuse me, and he was an undrafted free agent, but he's really come up, and he could be a number one wide receiver for a good football team. That's 2 minutes more. He can be lights out one day, and then the next game he have 2 catches for 13 yards. It's a play. It all goes to the quarterback position. And that's where it going to start. That's where it starts for an offense. And I feel like Deits wants to be a Pro Bowler at the least. I think he can be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL if he leaves the leaders soon, because he has so much talent. He can cut corners. He can do whatever he wants. And he can turn into the next, TN in many ways. He's a great wide receiver, has a lot of ability. And his potential is pretty much the sky. Sky's the limit for him. And, they go to the quarterback position once again. And it's disappointing because he has so much talent. And, it's disappointing to see him, every week just go up and down with his performance.
And wrapping up the Raiders there, Steven makes a good last point. Let's go to a team that this year was so close of winning a Super Bowl championship, but they lose to the Baltimore Ravens, who don't even make it into the playoffs this year. The Niners sneak in. But this Niners team has been amazing ever since Jim Harbaugh has came. They lost the NFC Championship with Alex Smith under QB. Then you lose Alex Smith. He gets a concussion. They give Colin Kaepernick the start. He impresses Jim Harbaugh, gets to start the rest of the year, now becomes the starting QB for the Niners, and now he went to the Super Bowl but got the loss. Nick, I want to go to you. This Niners team has done so well, but you watch that Super Bowl and you look at the team from the Super Bowl to now. What's the big difference between both of those teams?
Well, first and foremost, the Niners have not really lost a stride. Meanwhile, the Ravens remind me a lot of San Francisco, but they definitely took a step backwards, not because of anything going on inside the locker room, but just that there were so many retirements and they couldn't re-sign a number of players. San Francisco kept their key group of players back, their cognate being Frank Gore, still producing some solid numbers. You gotta love Frank Gore being all of 30 years old in his 9th season, still producing over 1,000 yards. Tip your hat off to a guy that continues to produce. This is a ground and pound team, and ironically enough, for an 11-win football team, they get the wild card positioning because of the Seahawks. But this does not look like a wild card team. Just so potent on the defensive side, and offensively, nothing really jumps out at you. But Colin Kaepernick, as of late, has played some pretty solid ball. Hasn't thrown an interception in the last couple of weeks. Just a very quiet performance by Colin Kaepernick, and a man that, outside of a couple losses, we're looking at the Niners putting up 14, 15 wins. We're talking against the Saints. They lose by a mere gaffe as Colin Kaepernick throws a couple of key mistakes. And they lost by a very close margin to the Panthers as well, a couple of hard-nosed NFC South ball clubs. Robert, I don't know about you, but heading into this game, Niners, while they may not be huge favorites, in my mind, I think should run away with this game and should pack their bags in the divisional championship. I just believe that Colin Kaepernick and this Niner ball club is on their way. A very quiet performance towards the end of the season and a small run, 5-game winning streak. What could have been more. San Francisco is looking pretty hot right now.
I look at this team that, Colin Kaepernick took over halfway through the season. In my mind, Jim Harbaugh might have made a good decision that way, but I also will say that making that Super Bowl run. I don't think he made the smartest decision. I know Steven will agree with me because he does not like Colin Kaepernick, but I've grown to like him a lot. I mean, now he's got a full season under his belt. And the losses he had were pretty tough. You know, he loses to Seattle 29-3 at Seattle. He loses at home, which, you know, you never want to lose at home. And he loses to Indianapolis 27-7. And then you look at another.
That was the beginning of the year, Robert. I mean, I think they turned around. Also, one more thing with Colin Kaepernick. While they may not have necessarily made the right choice, they definitely did not make the wrong choice. Colin Kaepernick and Alex Smith, both of them haven't had great years, but, I mean, if you're going to take a quarterback, I mean, you might as well take a guy that can run, too, in Kaepernick.
And you have more of the future QB right there, too, and I agree with you, Nick. And, Steven, I want to go to you. I mean, why do you not like Colin Kaepernick so much compared to Alex Smith?
Well, to the Nick's response, we need Nick or so no way to take this personally, but Nick, that was probably not an unnecessary call, because if you've seen Alex Smith's numbers, rushing wise, Alex Smith is a runner too. He is not just a passer. He's not just a pocket passer that throws for 13 yards a catch, pretty much. He's not that short yard guy. He can run the ball too. He hasn't put up the rushing yards that Colin Kaepernick has shown. And obviously, Colin Kaepernick is known for his legs, but Alex Smith, he has a leg too. His legs are incredible. He already had, I think he had like 500 rushing yards in the year or something like that, or 400 or something like that, maybe below that, maybe I'm over-exaggerating, but he posted numbers on the road. It's not just with the arm. Andy Reid can pull something out of his pocket with a triple option, with the speed or the read option, whatever, Colin Kaepernick did in San Francisco. Alex Smith can do the same thing over in Kansas City with Andy Reid. So I say that Alex Smith, if I had to draft, Alex Smith or Colin Kaepernick, I want to go with Smith. He can throw the ball, he can throw the deep ball. Kaepernick is inconsistent. Smith is consistent as hell. He's been very consistent. He just needs to have a coach that actually sticks with him for a few years in a row.
Yeah, I don't like to go strictly with statistics there, Stephen, but while I may have before not really liked the decision of having Alex Smith still on your team, I mean, I'm looking statistically. Colin Kaepernick, 21 touchdowns to 8 interceptions passing the football. Alex Smith, 23 TDs and only 7 picks. More touchdowns and less INTs for the man there in Kansas City. And also, you take a look at that running ability. This season, 400-plus yards for Alex Smith. Colin Kaepernick, about the same thing at about 500. So, I mean, we're looking at a controversy here that still goes on today. And both Smith and Kaepernick, Stephen, I may add, have a number of years left. They're still they're high draft picks that still have a number of solid production still left in front of them. What will be interesting here is down the stretch, two teams with similar abilities, can run the football, can play defense. Both the Niners and the Chiefs are in the wild card positioning, the number 5 seed, with the same exact record, ironically enough. We'll see what they do in the postseason, and who knows? Kaepernick against Smith, that'd be a great Super Bowl matchup. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, though, but for the meantime, both of these QBs playing very well.
I'll just finish what I had to say. I say that first, it's probably not going to be Niners and Chiefs. What I'm thinking is we're looking at a matchup between two great ball clubs and the Seahawks or the Broncos. Seahawks are just unbeatable at home, and the only team that beats them at home here is the Cardinals right now in the playoffs. The Niners in the last 2 years have had little to really no success even trying to score on Seattle at home. And then every other team, they'll get another 2 seed, the Panthers, they're probably going to be the best, the team that has the best shot in throwing the Seahawks at home in the playoffs. I think the Seahawks is way too good a team. The defense is just incredible. Their offense just instead of Russell Wilson. If Peyton Manning didn't have the year he had, Russell Wilson is probably in the mix for MVP. So, picture that on the other side, the Broncos just destroy the Chiefs in the the two regular season games that they had against each other. So if that were the case in the AFC